What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. Just want to say thank you, as always, to our listeners for tuning in every week. A new episode drops. You guys have been tremendous this last year. A lot of growth, a lot of new opportunities and experiences. So, thank you guys as always. Today's special guest, she is the founder of the Sterling Rose Sanctuary. She's a certified coach, mediator, and HeartSync minister, and she's also an author. Please help me welcome Marcia Earhart. Marcia, how you doing?
Fine. It is so good to see you. I'm getting there. There you go. It's good to see you, Chris. And
Yeah,
appreciate you having me on.
of course. I'm really glad that we got the reschedule to work out for both of us. So definitely grateful that you came on here today.
Yes, it's good. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can unpack some of this.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess let's dive right in. The core of your story is, you have experienced unimaginable loss. Grief is a conversation that so many don't know how to have or
Right.
express. What helped you survive the early days of grief, and how do you honor your son's memories in your daily life?
For me, because I'm very strong in my faith in Jesus was really what anchored me. Um, and so I had that as a foundation and really as a strength to lean on. Um, Both my sons, I've lost two sons in the last, 11 years. So I've incorporated them within my space within my heart where I think that if people don't understand, part of grief is incorporating that loss in a healthy way within you to be able to take it forward in a place where I can celebrate, where we can really enjoy the memories. That doesn't mean there won't be tears, but I'm not overcome with the anxiety, the stresses, the pain, because I've actually worked through with tools to heal.
Right. And just kind of like you said, most people that don't, well, the people that don't understand grief, it's not always tears, like you said. It's remembering the memories that you have with those said people. I lost my brother about 4 years ago now, to a driver, a reckless driver,
Mm,
and I started the podcast because of him, because he helped
mhm.
me find my voice, and the podcast has given me the opportunity to give those voice to those people that didn't have the opportunity to share them before. And I feel that every time a birthday comes up, or every time 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, um, yes, a lot of sadness does come. That's natural with grief. Where I feel like grief is just always something that we're experiencing when it comes to loss. Um, but it's incorporating your everyday life and what you do and your passions into those memories of those people. And I think that's just such a underrated and powerful way to heal from grief. For me, the way that I learned how to grieve was through a cartoon that taught you the 5 stages of grief.
Mm,
And it was a lesson that I learned well over 15 years ago now. And I still carry it to this day. I didn't know how to deal with grief. My parents didn't teach me how to grieve properly because they didn't know how to grieve.
right. So can I ask what your brother's name was?
Santiago.
Well, first of all, I praise God for Santiago, that out of his life, there's been birthed this beautiful podcast to reach out to others for them to have a space. I mean, what better way to honor your brother and bring him into your life with you? I just love that. Thank you, Chris, for sharing
Yeah,
that.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. And I think that just even your own testimony, that right there shows people that we can move in a way where there's healing, where there's hope, where we actually see life coming from those places that have been deeply wounded. I think that's part of the healing that happens in the journey.
Yeah.
And we have to have healthy examples around us of grieving. And as you said, your parents didn't teach you. I was very blessed. My parents did teach me how to grieve and to grieve very well. Now, I have a question for you. You said you watched a movie. So, did you experience all five of those?
All five of them. Yep. I think I was caught in between the stages, the first three stages for a long time,
Okay.
and I think when the acceptance stage came in, and just wanting to give into those feelings when that time came around, um, it felt like he was still here. Like I just had a conversation with him yesterday,
Yeah.
and I think when those stages all came to pass, when I got to that final stage, and it's just like, okay, this all happened. I don't want to accept it, but it's reality. And how can I take his loss and turn it into something that could push me to be a better version of myself?
hmm
And one of his favorite sayings that I have tattooed on my arm because of him is defeat the me of yesterday. And
Love that.
I will forever
Mm.
live by that phrase because
Mm.
it's so powerful, especially when it comes to loss.
hmm It is. Um, so I want to say something for your audience. The five stages of grief that Chris is referring to is from Kubler-Ross, and that actually is really it's five stages of death that has been misquoted for years. And I need your audience to know not everybody will experience five stages. They won't. Some may go in one stage and stay there and move forward in their life. So I don't want people to think that there's a certain protocol in this and that they've got to go through all five. And if they didn't, oh boy, they're not done in their healing.
Right.
Because that can be really confusing for people. And it's one of those fallacies that as a professional, I have to deal with every day because people are like, I haven't had this and I keep wondering when this issue is going to happen. I've not been in denial or I haven't, really struggled with anger. And I'm like, well, let's just stop right there. You don't have to. It's all based on who we are, where we are, and the experiences that we've had, the teaching, and like you were talking about, the exposure to grief, the exposure to tools. So I think that's really important for people to know because everyone's grief journey is very unique to
Right.
their journey and to the relationship that they had with that individual.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like my two sons, our grief journeys were very different because our relationship was very different with each of them. And the impact was the same in the sense of the losses, if that makes sense, but the
Yeah.
way in which we navigated through it was vastly different. Um, Second go round, we had a greater set of resources and tools that had already been implemented. So it was easier, and we still weren't, and when I say this, we were still in the process
Right.
of really, we had just become, I believe, that new person that I was called to be in my family. And then that second implosion happened 5 years after the first. And
Ah.
so we started again.
Mm-hmm.
And and so there's two components to grief. There's grieving with hope,
Mm-hmm.
which we're called to grieve with hope. And there's grieving with the spirit of grief. When the spirit of grief comes on you, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, despair, that this is the extinction of life as I've known it, that I cannot go on.
Yeah.
That's a spirit of grief. And I want your audience to understand that that kind of grief can lead to a very permanent decision being made and a lifestyle being made that really is not where they really need to end up.
Yeah.
That there are new things, just like you're living proof. There are new things. I'm living proof. There are new things. And yes, we miss our loved ones, but they've been carried forward and they're still speaking and they're still impacting. And we get to choose how we incorporate that and where that goes.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought up that grieving is different for everybody and not everybody hits those five stages, like you said. I think that's super important to mention because the year before Santi passed away, I had a really good friend pass away from an illness that she had her whole life. Passed away at pre-surgery, and he helped me get through her loss. And lo and behold, he was preparing me to grieve for him. And he was a really big man of faith as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like he knew, like he was
Mm-hmm.
preparing me for that
Mm-hmm.
moment, for when he was when he was gone. And it's when people think of healing, when people think of grieving, they think everybody's gonna, there's a time limit on everything. There's, okay, well, it's been 6 months, I need to get over it. And it's like, not everybody heals that way. And I love that you pointed that out, because healing and grieving, not everybody's gonna have the same type of way that they do it. Some people hold on to that first stage, like you said.
Well, even the getting over. First of all, we're never going to get over because we love them.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go through this passage, but we will not get over. We're not called to get over the love of the people in our life. And I still love my sons just like you still love your brother. I don't want to get over their love. Their love still impacts me to this day. It's going to
Yeah.
impact me tomorrow. So I want that love to go with me. And, you know, again, that's where, and when you said that you felt like Santi knew, we did know. I don't think that that's part of the story that you know, but it was confirmed to us in 2008 that our oldest would die in a tragic car accident. So I grieved for 9 months in 2008.
Yeah.
And the Lord sowed scripture into me that actually was the very foundation, Chris, that helped anchor me and speak to me when he passed.
Right. And
And my son knew he was going to pass. He knew his life celebration was planned from 2008 on. He knew. And he even said, I mean, he had even said prior to that, I know I'm not going to be around when y'all get older. And he said, I know the Lord's going to take me home. And he knew that. It wasn't a death wish for him. He loved life. And he was so amazing in his connection with others and the way he communicated with others. But God had something more with his life here
yeah.
than allowing and than for him to be here. And so I want to say, people go, well, why did God take him? I said, first of all, God didn't take him. Our day and our time is already written in the book of life as to when we're coming in and when we're going. It's stamped. We can't change the stamped date.
Right.
And so God wasn't evil. He wasn't unkind. Our second son was murdered. God didn't do that. People have free will. The reality is, God didn't plan for your brother to be killed in a car accident. That wasn't his plan.
Right.
But it's part of allowing the free will of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that people get hung up in. It's painful because it's like, why? Well, the reality is, from the time we're born, we're dying.
Yeah.
From the time we are born, every breath we take gets closer to death because we're all going out the same way. We're all going to die in that way. I'm just saying we're all going to die. Nobody's going to escape death. So we have to learn, one, to be comfortable with the topic. Two, what does that look like to walk in, to really be prepared for? Where am I in my own mind, in my own spirit? Am I prepared for that? If not, then I need to be.
Yeah.
And how do I get prepared? And if it's for someone that's grieving a loss, then they need to do the introspection and get some help to get the healing. And when I say that, we can be healed from our grief. We do not have to live in a pit full of sorrow the rest of our days.
Right. Right.
So
And
there are things that come from it, good
mm-hmm.
things.
And it's all a matter of, the people that have to be willing to put that foot in front of the other, and take those steps to get better. Because, like you said, some people hold on to that sorrow. It's the mind is a very powerful thing, and a lot of us get trapped there for a really long time.
Well, that's the battle. The battlefield's in the
Yeah.
mind. It is.
Right.
And there's something in my book that I write about, and it's that we have to choose whether we live from the tree of life or the tree of death every single day, every minute. A
Right.
negative thought is from the tree of death. Any negative thought, uh, I'm just not going to get better. That's from the tree of death. If
Yeah.
I say, you know what, my body is repairing and getting healthy, our bodies line up with what we speak to it. I mean, there's science to show this. I'm not just making this up. I mean,
Right.
there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. So if we have negative talk, the body lines up with the negative talk, and you're going to have high blood pressure, heart disease. I mean, you'll have all these things. I mean, because what happens is the body starts tapping into the toxins and it starts living from that toxin. If I'm speaking life to my body and I'm speaking that daily, then guess what? My body lines up with that too, and my mind.
Right.
So, tree of life, tree or death, what are you living from? And if you're living from the tree of death, do you really want to stay there?
Right. And
Yeah.
it's, it reminds me of that quote from, I believe Henry Ford said it. Whether you believe you can or can't, you're right.
That's
And
right.
I think so many people, I'm a really big violator in negative self-talk. It's I didn't grow up with very positive role models, and just kind of hearing that negative reinforcement for almost my entire childhood, early teens. Um, it took me about 27 years to finally say enough is enough and get the help for myself that I deserved. Um, and it is true. Whether you tell yourself you can do something, you can put anything you put your mind to. You can do anything you put your mind to. And so many people hear that as like a cliche, like, yeah, okay, I could do whatever that I say I could do. It you can't. Once you tell, like, affirmations, I'm a really big believer in affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
If you look in the mirror and tell yourself at least once a day, hey, you're doing great, and you do that enough and do that enough, you're going to notice a gigantic change in your mood every single day.
Yes.
And I have done this thing where I've been writing one positive thing
Yep.
out of every single day and put it on an index card, and going to read some of them at the end of the year. And it helps because it makes you think, oh, yesterday wasn't a completely bad day. I had that going for me. That happened.
Mm-hmm.
And once you come up with those tools and you're able to fight back on that negative self-talk and be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, you're doing great, I love you, that's really powerful.
It
People
is.
underestimate that.
It is. And you're speaking life to your cells.
Right.
And I love that you've got the box. In the book, I tell people to actually write a list of gratitude, thankfulness. And one of the things that I love is for them to be able to do that every day, get up and speak three or four things. And then in the end of the day, three or four things back again. And because when we're grieving, the propensity is to get focused on the grief in the moment and think that's all that's happened. When we really have to reflect and look at, okay, when I wake up, Lord, thank you for the breath that you've given me today. Thank you that the sun is shining. Whatever it is that, Lord, I'm just grateful I can get out of my bed.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be these over the moon. It's just the reality of life, and that we can give that. And then at the end of the day, I made it through the day again. That's huge. And
Yeah.
for us to speak that, and I'm grateful. And I know that, I can continue to give that Thanksgiving and then to go back and read it and reread it, because what it's doing is it's rewiring the synapses of the brain,
Right.
and it's starting to heal it from all that's imploding in it and the lies and the deception that it's listening to from out here.
Yeah.
And so we want to intercept. It's like playing football. You got to intercept that play that's going on in your head with the truth of
Mm-hmm.
what is real,
Right.
not what you perceive to be real, but what is real.
And also, to piggyback on top of that, that goes the same for traditions. For um, pretty much my whole life, I strongly disliked holidays because, number one, I had a toxic family, and number two, I used to
Mm.
work in retail. So
Mm.
put those two
Bless
put
you.
those two together.
Ah, bless you.
Um, and I strongly dislike Thanksgiving because my family always fought, and same with
Mm.
Christmas, same reason. Now every November we have created a tradition where I have a Thanksgiving with my friends. We do a Friendsgiving,
I love that.
and every Christmas day, me and my best friend go to the movies and see a movie.
Mhm.
And we have done it 5 years in a row, and it has been something that has gotten me out of the mindset of, holidays suck because I have a, not healthy family. And that's no longer true. I create my own traditions and my own family, and it works out.
I love you. Can I just tell you I love you? Let me tell you, for your audience, Chris has done some really hard work. You have, and I want to applaud you because most people will not put in the effort that it takes. And honey, you've done that and you've done it well. I love that you removed yourself from the toxic environment that you were in and that you established something new, something beautiful, something that is life-giving for you at Thanksgiving, something that's a great memory that's happening on Christmas for you. And that you didn't and you knew that I could let go of that. And that's very important when we're grieving that we look at what can we let go of that no longer needs to be moving forward with me? What can I incorporate new? And we did that the first year our son passed. We did not stay home for a holiday, a major holiday. And when I say that, we went somewhere for a few days. We didn't stay home for birthday and for his homecoming to heaven day. We went and celebrated new things in new places, him away from the triggers that could be around us, the pictures, the memories, not that we were running from, but because we knew that's going to be a tough day. So let's do something that's really more life-giving. And if we feel sorrow and we need to grieve, we'll do that. But we're not imploding with all the other things that are coming on top of us because it's all around us. So I just love that you have done the work, honey.
I
And I
appreciate you
just see
so
that
much.
beautiful smile on your face, and I can tell that, I mean, it's been life changing for you.
Yeah.
So this is
Um,
wonderful.
I appreciate you so much. It's, when it comes to the journey that I've walked and the people that I've met, including yourself, um, you hear a lot of different perspectives when it comes to loss or when it comes to just walking the everyday life. And I think when you meet people that have grieved, that have experienced loss like yourself, and you can look them in the eye and say, "Hey, I understand what you went through," and acknowledge that you and I have put in so much work to get to where we're at. And I appreciate your kind words so much. And to say that I don't hear it enough, I hear it. I just don't hear it enough. And I really do appreciate those words because it means a lot to the inner child in me that was bruised and battered for so long.
Hmm.
And I appreciate you so much and grateful that I can be vulnerable and that I can talk about the things that I've experienced, but also hear your testament to life as well.
Well, that inner child found new ways to be able to be loved on.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful that the inner child actually stepped out of that place and stepped into a new place because that can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And what that inner child is realizing is that every time I continue to do this, I continue to heal
Yeah.
and I'm continuing to be reset and that inner child is growing up and the inner child will join you as an adult man.
Yeah.
And that's what
Absolutely.
happens. It will. And so when you get to a point that you don't hear it enough, you need to rewind this video and you need to hear me tell you because you've done the work and it's beautiful and it sits on you well. I can see it in you, honey.
Thank you.
And that it is and for people who've not walked this journey, I want everyone to know this is not what Chris is talking about is not easy in and of itself. He had to be intentional. He had to make the point that I'm going to make the changes. I'm not going to receive this anymore. And he has turned and walked into the direction of life itself. And so we either live among the dead or the living. And where you were was among the dead. When you stay in a toxic environment, that is living among the dead. Nothing grows from that. And so, I mean, just your testimony is so powerful as that you've walked into that land and you're living victoriously. Good for you.
Thank
Good
you.
for you. Yeah.
Um, and I think the conversation of grief also goes along with that too. It's not just death, it's not just people that we've lost. It's relationships with our parents. It's relationships with our family members. that was one of the biggest parts of my journey, was grieving the fact that my parents will never change and accepting them for who they are. And they're not evil people, but it's I know I'll never have a healthy relationship with either one of them because they can't get out of their own way, unfortunately. And when you start accepting that and you start grieving that relationship and be like, okay, it's okay. I still love them for who they are. I forgive them, even though they never apologized. And when you realize that you're enough for yourself, that you don't need that validation, you don't need their approval, it's so free.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest things that I've ever done in my journey was stop chasing the ghost of validation from my father. Never
Mhm.
heard the words, I'm proud of you. And that ate me up forever, probably for about more than half my life. And I remember talking to my therapist about it. We just had a conversation about it. And I just threw my hands down. I said, you know what? I'm done crying about this. I'm done
Mhm.
being upset, shedding tears for this man, because I just want to hear those words. I'm proud of you. I've never heard I'm proud of you for not almost taking your life. I'm proud of you for therapy. None of that. And I just shrug my shoulders at it now, and it's never going to happen. I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that.
But that again, you've chosen to see who your parents are,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not disappointed anymore because what happens is when we're disappointed, there's an unmet expectation we've placed on someone else. You've removed the expectation on them, realizing they've had their own fractures in life to create who they are, and they're not choosing to make changes.
Right.
And therefore, you've let them go in their space, and you're loving well by doing what you're doing. And I think we need to acknowledge that grief is many things. It's losing the dreams that we had, it's losing the relationships that go with other people around us. And it's losing uh, the essence of we die. We actually die to who we are when there are impacts within our soul. And those losses are very profound, each one of them. We may lose the space we lived in, our job, finances, loss. There's such a multitude of losses that
Yeah.
can happen from one loss. And I want to say something to you, and I hope you can receive this because I deal with a lot of people that have looked for validation from their father. Your heavenly father adores you, he loves you, he celebrates you, and he delights over you, and he sings a song over you every day. And I hope you can hear it. And he is singing his love for you. And he tells you all the time that you're chosen by him, that you're valued by him. And so I really hope that you can hear that because it's what he says.
Yeah.
And he does take joy in seeing you and cheering you on and seeing you be the overcomer that was secured when Jesus overcame death.
you know, um, when Santi passed away, as I mentioned, he was a really big man of faith and had a really strong relationship with God. And would always tell me, hey man, like you should come to church sometime. They know all about your story and they would love to hear your testament. And I always had a strange relationship with churches because of my grandparents, because they kind of tried to force it on me as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And would always judge the clothes that I would wear, like, oh, well, people don't dress like that, and this and that. After he passed away, I felt extra strength that I can't possibly explain.
Mm-hmm.
So, you sharing what you just shared, I do feel that encouragement. I do feel that higher power that pushes me forward. And sometimes you can't explain it. And I have never had a faith following because of said triggers in the past, but when he passed away, and there were certain times in my life where I felt like giving up, especially after he was gone, because I just didn't feel like there was a
Mm-hmm.
purpose for me to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that strength just one day waking up, just waking me in the middle of the night, saying, everything is going to get better from here, and you're going to you're going to heal and you're going to be happy and you're going to feel all the things that you're supposed to feel as a healthy person. And 5 years, almost 5 years later, since he passed, it's been a journey, and I do feel every ounce of what you said, and I starting to believe that relationship a lot more than I did 5 years ago.
Well, and I want to speak on your brother. Your brother, knowing the Lord is with the Lord. And so it says there's a cloud of witnesses. Your brother's in the cloud of witnesses that cheer us on. And honey, I can tell you, his voice is going to be the loudest cheering you on because there are times I can hear my sons cheering me on from that cloud of witness. Go, mom. Great, mom. We love you, mom. And that's such a gift.
Yeah,
It's a gift. And that's another way they get to be imparted in our lives because they are cheering us on.
yeah.
We can't have any greater cheerleader, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Um,
beautiful?
living in Florida my whole life, I've always had a taking to sunsets. And when my friend Amy passed away and then Santi the year after passed, I always make a point to at least try and see a sunset once a week, twice a week. And I remember after he passed away, I was in a really dark state of mind, just not really understanding what is what anymore and why this happened. The entire sky was pink and purple, like from back to front. And I said, I believe in guardian angels. And it looked like angels were floating into the sunset. And I swear to God, Marcia, it was one of the most beautiful sunsets to this day that I've ever seen in my entire life.
Okay, but you
And
know that was handcrafted just for you by God.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's my book is all the pictures in the book. And I love sunsets and I lived in Naples at the time, Naples, Florida.
yeah,
Oh my word, the Lord so showed up and showed me things that were literally specifically for me.
yeah,
That he painted that sky. He had that bird exactly where it was, singing I mean, every single thing, because that's the depth of his love for each of his children, that he will minister to each of us uniquely, and that he painted that sky for you, and you got to see those angels moving through. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, honey.
I'll show you the picture if I can find it after we get done recording.
Yeah,
I
I'd love
think
to see it.
it's incredible. Every time I tell somebody that about sunsets, you're like, really? You like sunsets? That's like the most random thing I've ever heard from a guy to say. I'm like, dude, I can't explain it. It's a spiritual thing for me when I go to sunsets.
It is.
Um,
I mean, I think it is. It
yeah.
is because every sunset, I would just say, Lord, you hand paint every single sunset, and I see it.
Hmm.
And that this is your artistry. Every day there's just this artistry.
Yeah.
I love the beach. I think the beach is very healing. I also love the beach. And being here in Florida, I love to go to the beach and walk
Yeah.
the beach and just really be in his presence there because I
Hmm.
do feel it just
Right.
around me, engulfing me.
And the year before he passed away, when my friend Amy passed, um, I went to the dock to go watch a sunset, and it looked like there was a phoenix carved into the sky.
Wow.
I'll show you that one too if I can find it. It's one of those pictures that when you take a second look at it, it's like there's no way that appeared on the sky right after she passed, because she was in a lot of pain like most of her life, and the
Mhm.
doctors couldn't
Mm.
find out what was wrong with her. And when she went into surgery, um, our last conversation was we were going to go on her brother's boat. We were going to catch a sunset together, and then got word that she passed away. Um, so sunsets were mine and her thing, and I incorporated that with Santi as well. And sunsets have been something that brings a lot of warmth to my heart, and
Mm.
living in Florida has been a blessing specifically for those sunsets.
And I love that it's been a consistent theme for the people that you've lost, that that's where you're ministered to.
Yeah,
And for the audience, there are going to be certain ways that you're ministered to that someone else isn't. And embrace the space where you're ministered to. Everyone doesn't need to understand how you're ministered,
Yeah.
but look for those places and enjoy those places and let it really marinate within
Hmm.
yourself because it is part of the healing.
Right. And, being with nature, people underestimate how powerful being with nature is. Just
Yes,
go for a walk in the woods for like 15 minutes and you'll feel like a completely different mood than you were feeling when you were walking in there. And
yes.
it's crazy the way that nature just resonates in one's soul.
Well, and when we work with people who are grieving, because that's what I do every day, I work with people who are grieving and have
Yeah.
trauma. One of the things that's their homework is to get out and walk or to go get in nature somewhere. And a lot of times they're not out, they're
Yeah.
not active. And we've got to get back in the creation where the creator can speak through creation. We have to. And let me tell you, when they go out, it doesn't take a week. I get a phone call or a text. Oh my gracious, this has been so helpful for me. And I'm walking 30 minutes or I'm doing, and I'm like, "Thank you," because it changes the mindset.
Yeah.
It changes what's going on in here. And what happens when we are in grief is we really don't do movement. We're not breathing well, we're not moving well. And so we just cease and just sit back and we just stagnate.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
again, it has to be with intention. I need to go outside. I need to go take a walk. I need to go sit out in the backyard and just
Right.
allow for this area to minister to me.
Yeah.
I prefer people actively walking, actively doing something because I think that walking and all of that is really important in the processing of the grief from the mind into the body.
Yeah, I completely agree. Getting that movement definitely changes a lot within your body and especially your mind as well. While we're on the conversation of just like the essentials of healing, how do you define emotional safety and why is it essential in healing?
Emotional safety to me is that you find that space
Hmm.
or that person or those people where you are able to let your emotions be made known, where you know it's not going to be with judgment, it's not going to be with harsh opinions, and that you are able to now have that opportunity to express whatever emotion it is. And it's essential to our mental health because if they get trapped, because emotions can get trapped within us, then it causes a decline in the mental health, the physical health, our spiritual health, and every aspect of our body. And so we want to find the place where we can have that emotion able to be expressed, where it is heard, it is validated, and it is accepted. Now, I want to make something clear. If you're suicidal, that's an emotional state.
Hmm.
That's not accepted. We're not accepting a suicidal state. You can express that suicidal state, but then that person needs to know how to speak into that so that that part realizes that where you are right now is not necessarily going to be where you are in 1 hour.
Right.
So, not to make that permanent decision in a temporary emotional state.
Right. What would you say to the listeners if they have a friend who is suicidal or experiencing those kind of thoughts? How would you recommend that they, I guess, help those people that are experiencing that emotion?
Well, first of all, I think we have to be careful how one, people need to be trained. And what happens is if they're not trained, if they say something, then they feel that they were responsible. And so I need all listeners to know if someone really wants to commit suicide, they're going to commit suicide. There's not something you can do to prevent it. However, if someone is suicidal and you know that, in Florida, we have the Baker Act where we can actually take them and say they are harmful. We feel they're harmful to themselves. I really do suggest that. If you know resources, get them to a place, get them to someone that you know resource wise can intervene. If not, have an intervention quickly, quickly. Get some friends together, family members, whoever, the safe people. They have to be safe people. We cannot bring people that are toxic in this mix that can tip the cart. So and again, to find those means, and we've got suicide hotline. I mean, we've got places that are, I mean, they are highly trained suicide hotlines, amazing.
Yeah.
But if you know that's happening, be present, walk through as much as you can, but also know that at some point they've got to take ownership and they have to. Just like you did, Chris. You said that you were in a dark place, but you took ownership. No one could have made you turn around. You
Right.
had to see that there was value in the turnaround. And we also have to be careful because we can have a suicidal thought, but we can also go into a place where the that suicide can then become a very toxic place where I really don't think I can get out of this. And so there are two aspects of when someone says they're feeling suicide. The natural tendency when someone has had loss is to say, and you'll hear people say, I just want to die. Yes, we've just had this profound loss in our life. We do just want to die because we feel like we just died anyways, and we did, but now we want to die. But that's just because we're feeling the intensity of the pain. And so when we go back to our emotions again, we have to understand that kind of pain is something we all need to understand how to experience and know that life still keeps going and I can keep going with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that registering? Because I feel like that's where sometimes people just go, I just can't do this. No, baby, you can't do it by yourself. This is why we have community. This is why we have professionals. This is why we invite, and I want to speak to the audience, invite carefully into your journey who's in your journey.
Yeah.
Because those people are speaking into your life, and you want people who are healthy, who are speaking in your life to promote the well being of your life emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah.
And if they're
Completely agree.
not, just, yeah. And what you said is you eliminated the toxic people that were not able to do that for your life.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
When
there are examples here, you know?
when I did training for the suicide text line, I know one of the most important things that they said is don't offer advice. Just listen, talk them through it. Make them feel like they're seen and heard. And
That's
I tell
right.
this to all my friends as well. Like, if you have somebody who is feeling this way, do not give them advice.
Mm-mm.
Don't say, oh, well, try doing this, try doing that.
Nope. Nope.
Just listen. That's what most of us want. When I had my first attempt when I was 14 years old, I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to
Mhm.
be heard and stop feeling the way that I felt. And, I self harmed a lot because I wanted to feel something. And my attempt, the way that I was going to do it was going to be in front of the whole school because I wanted to be seen.
Mm.
And was it the right decision in my life at the time? No, of course not. I don't encourage anybody to take their life. But if you're dealing with somebody who has suicidal tendencies, and like you said, if somebody's going to take their life, they're going to do it. They're not
Yes.
going to give you a warning.
No, they're
Those
not.
signs, while people sometimes will say, I didn't see the signs are always there. You just got to know what you're looking for when it comes to those signs.
Mm.
I had a friend who took his life in high school, and I kind of saw it unraveling. I tried to be there for him as much as possible, and it happened the way that it happened. And I wish that I could have done more, but high school, you're not really in that mindset of trying to help somebody like that. But point being, when it comes to people that have suicidal tendencies or ideations or whatever the conversation, um, make sure you're listening. Make sure
Mhm.
you're present. Don't have a phone and just they're scrolling while they're pouring
That's
their
right.
heart out to you. Like, look them in the eyes and let them know that you're listening to everything they're saying. If they want your help, finding resources, because most times people that pour their hearts out will be open to getting that help.
Mhm. That's right.
And people need to understand that not everybody wants advice when it comes
That's
to
right.
any state of mind that they're in.
Well, you covered some things. They have to feel safe
Mm-hmm.
and they need to feel heard. And so when people are sitting with someone who's talking about their mental state in that kind of way, they just need to hold space for them.
Right.
But the question they can ask, do you think at this time you would bring harm to yourself? After it's all said and done, and not in the interjecting like in the beginning, let them talk. But I think we need to ask that because you know what that shows? I care about you.
Yeah.
And if you think that, I want to stay with you, or I want you to go home with me, or can we find some way that you feel safer than you do right now with yourself? That's the only thing that we really need to, those things, that's it.
Right. I had somebody, the mental health group that I have on Facebook that I created in 2019. Um, I had somebody share in there, she was feeling very suicidal and she was getting like really intense in the post that she put in the group. And this group is private, so no public eyes were seeing this type of stuff. But she posted one couple hours prior to that post, and then the second post she put out was really intense, and it got a little concerning. I'm like, okay, she's out of state, so I can't just show up at her door and just make sure she's okay. I did a wellness check,
Mhm.
and at first she was very upset with me. She was like, why did you call the cops? My mom is freaking out, this and that. An hour after that, she messaged me and apologized. And she's like, I just want you to know that I'm sorry that I got upset. And I'm grateful that somebody cared enough to send somebody to check on me.
That's right.
And you essentially saved my life.
Mhm.
And I said, I don't do these things out of malice. I don't try to hurt anybody. It's if you're saying that and you firmly believe you're going to do that,
Mhm.
if I can interject and help, I
Absolutely.
will. And after that, her and I became good friends and we talked for a while and she got the help that she needed. So
Mm.
it's all a matter of time and place and the situation too. Like
Yes.
you said, that they need to feel safe. And
Yes.
sometimes you have to take that extreme and call a wellness check on people or a Baker Act, like you said.
Well, and that's intervention. That's what I
Yeah.
was referring to as intervention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you did it in love. And guess what? Sometimes they may never talk to us again. I'd rather someone not ever talk to me again and them still be here than the fact that I didn't do what I felt I needed to do in the moment.
Yeah.
So
Completely agree.
I think that's essential to being present with someone
Yeah.
is acting in accordance with what they're saying.
Can you share a moment when you were coaching someone through trauma that deeply impacted you?
Mm. There are so many, but I have one that is just, I think it's probably going to stay with me because the I had a woman who came to me. She had lost her son by suicide. She was struggling with the pain and the trauma of the suicide. And she was living in an abusive marriage. He had thrown her against the wall, and so her back had been severed, and she had some disability, and she couldn't walk straight anymore because of the abuse. There was a language barrier. They called the police, and her husband convinced the police that she was lying and did not do anything to intervene. So, whatever he said, she got to the hospital and she was abused at the hospital by the doctor and dismissed. She needed out. She was also being sexually abused. She was being emotionally abused. Probably one of my hardest cases that I've ever had because I looked for every resource in the city that we were living. I called churches, I called different organizations, different ministries. found out a lot. Most all the organizations and ministries, if you take in a person who is coming from that kind of abuse, they have to work. Chris, she couldn't work. She was handicapped from this incident and she didn't have a car. She did not have the means. She was on disability. It was absolutely tragic to me that there were not the resources. Now, I'm working with her on her grieving and on the trauma of having lived in and is still living in this abusive situation. But I have to be honest, to me, even though she claimed those things were helpful that she had imparted into her life, it's still to me haunting to me to this day that we did not have the resources and the means to do a better job, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Right.
Um, and I can give you cases where it is more hope filled, but I think your audience needs to understand that we still are in a deficit of some resources that are greatly needed.
Absolutely.
And it's not that people don't care, it's not for a lack of wanting, it's for a lack of resources. And and then I'll tell you another one that is really a very hope-filled story, because I feel audience needs to hear a hope-filled story. I have a lot of individuals come to me that have been in sexual ritual abuse. And I actually saw this. I mean, I had this one young lady who came, and there had been years of abuse that had happened within her life. And so there was a lot of, she didn't have a lot of recall because her mind had also been programmed.
Yeah.
And so she had lived in a life that really lived out of shame and guilt. So she basically used her body to get the love and validation because she didn't know that. She had never had that and experienced it as a child. And yet the shame and guilt was so heavy on her. And so when she came and we in heart healing, I take someone in the presence of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So she went into that space. And I have to tell you, it was absolutely beautiful watching her get the healing and for the Father to speak over her from a father's love,
Yeah.
how much he loved her and restored her. I want everyone to hear me. He restored her as that child, and he held her, and Jesus wept with her. And she said, "Where were you?" And Jesus showed her where he was and that he was right there and that he was crying beside her. She did not know he was present with her in that place. And there was an enormous shift for her to see that he had been there and he showed her what he protected her from, even though there were all these heinous things that had happened to her. And she wept with gratitude. And so the Lord does heal. And I really would have to say I'm on holy ground every day because I'm just the one that walks the person to the bridge. And then the Trinity does everything else. And it is, to me, there's nothing that compares to someone being restored, being redeemed,
Yeah.
no longer feeling abandoned, no longer feeling forsaken, forgotten, and that they all of a sudden have this new sense of identity that I've always mattered, I've always had value, but because of this heinous situation and what I was given over to, I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And now she's living and thriving and has a beautiful life that just is so amazing.
I love
So
that.
I do too. I do too. So I'm very thankful for those moments where we see the victories and we see it because
Yeah.
why? The person who comes is intentional in letting go and releasing all of that pain and receiving the new
Yeah.
because it's carried this crap for so long. It's exhausted. It's
Yeah.
tired. It wants it wants the new thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's such a beautiful example of just how much good can be present in this world full of just, frankly, a lot of darkness, a lot of hardships, especially the first story that you shared of, it's a lot of resources that we don't have that slip through the cracks, or
Yes.
the resources we do have just don't help. And I think a lot of people, we need to fight a lot harder than we do for
Yes.
these resources that we don't
Yes.
have, because there are so many people that are struggling without and don't know how to help themselves. Because if the faith wasn't there for the woman that you just shared about her being reformed and having a new identity, there's not a lot of resources that may have helped her. And I'm glad that she found faith, and I'm glad that you were there for her to, like you said, walk her to the bridge. I think that's so powerful.
It is powerful. And the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, we are boots on the ground for mental health and the grief and the trauma. And we're all over the US and we're in 6 countries now. But we want a physical place, Chris, and it's going to
Yeah.
take people understanding that that physical place is for people to come where they can come out of the trigger trauma they're living in for
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5 days and be reset and have resources and have renewal and that resurrection of life.
Right.
It's important. It's part of the process of healing. Moving space, changing our space, getting from a place where there's that negative space, negative triggers in our life to a space that we can start with newness and we can invest in that it's beautiful around us and we have that new creation. And a lot of people don't want to leave their old spaces. They
Yeah.
just don't because they feel I'm going to leave all my memories. I'm going to leave the person. I'm going to leave this. And the reality is, if they were to change their placement, wow, they take so much more with them. They have no idea, but they're being bound by this mindset that if I stay here, I keep it all. But they're not realizing that they're bound almost to a sentence of death in that place that when they go somewhere else, they're taking all of that life that had been there and it's starting a new life and it's birthing all the beauty that was what you had in that place and space.
Yeah. And when you leave an environment that isn't, the healthiest for you, and like you said, you take a lot with you, and it gives you the opportunity to start anew, and it gives you the opportunity to experience new opportunities, experience new life, essentially.
Yeah.
um, Reminds me of when I put my time in to Publix, and I left Florida for a year. um, I moved up north with my mom, and it turned out to be one of the worst decisions of my life. But, and this is where we share the hope part of the story, I had almost had my second attempt up there.
Mm,
And my brother called me. He said,
mm,
"Hey, God sent me to, reach out to you. I don't know what it was, and I know you're struggling, and I just want you to know that I love you and I'm here
mm,
for you." And after that phone call, I reached out to a mental health facility, and I got myself a therapist for the first time in 27 years. And after that very first 2 sessions that I had with her, I was crying nonstop. I
mm,
didn't speak any coherent sentences without tears in my eyes. And after that, she said in the 6 months that I was in therapy with her, she said I did the most work that she's seen anybody do
mm,
to try and get better. To hear those words from a professional is probably one of the most gratifying things that
mm,
I've ever heard, because my mom's words of "I was never going to be enough, I was never going to do anything" always echoed in the back of my head.
mm,
And I remember the very last session before I decided to come back to Florida because the environment with my mom just wasn't healthy, I shaved my entire beard off. Like I had a baby face. And you see in
Mm.
his beard now, it's like he didn't have a baby face. That's just craziness.
Oh,
Um,
I see the baby face under there. Don't you see it? I can see it. I can see it.
um, and she said, you know what, the first time that I met you, you know, you couldn't look at me in the eyes. Like my therapist said this. She's like, now I see you for who you are, like my full face. And it was probably one of the most productive 6 months that I've ever had in my life up until I had my second therapist down here. Um, but it takes a lot of strength and a lot of willpower to get yourself out of that false hope and that security blanket that we keep convincing ourselves that, oh, if I leave here, I'm not going to have anything. I'm not going to
That's
have
right.
my family. I'm not going to have this and that. I did all of that. I I left my family members down here in Florida. Granted, I moved up north with my sister and my mom, but all my family was down here in Florida, and
Mhm.
none of them reached out to me. None of them talked to me when I was up there. I mean, and it took leaving to understand that in order to heal, you have to separate yourself from your environment sometimes.
That's right. That's right. I told you
And
I love you because you're such a testimony. You are. You're such a testimony of what it means to really address the pain in your life and to know that as hard as it may have been, you've embraced the new things and look at you. You're thriving. You're thriving. And it's you're not just surviving. See, there's a difference in survival and thriving. And you move from survival to full thriving.
I think that's the one of the hardest transitions too, right? Because when we're
Yes,
taught to, you know, that fight and flight almost our entire life and surviving and getting by day to day. And then when somebody reaches their hand out and that one person that reaches out to you could change your life forever.
that's right.
He was that person for me. He was the one that actually saw there was somebody struggling and that he could make a difference in my life. And I still remember the last conversation I had with him. And I, to this day, am so grateful. The last words that I said to that man was, I love you,
Mhm.
before he was taken away.
Mhm.
And there is not one day that goes by that has any doubt filled thoughts that he wouldn't be proud of me because I know he would be.
Oh, honey, he's cheering you on. He's like, yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I love that you were talking about what the reality came for you. And we have to come to a place of reality. First of all, we can't force other people to love us. And here's the reality. You wouldn't want that love because they're not capable. So you need to let go of what that even may look like and go, you know what? I can accept them for who they are. They're not going to be what I would have really loved to have had and then release that. We adopted three of our five children, and that was a life lesson that my children had to learn of their siblings. Two of the brothers, the half brothers, they just could not be who their siblings wanted them to be. And so I would say to them, sweetie, they're not capable of being who you want them to be. So you've got to come to a place where you accept who they are. And if you're wanting to be in a relationship, this is how it's going to be. And if not, you get to choose.
Yeah,
You get to choose. And I don't know that people are taught that well, but I think that's why we have so many dysfunctional people because they keep banging their head on the wall to keep having these dysfunctional relationships, trying to make them work when they're not going to change.
absolutely. I couldn't agree
But what
more.
it does is it changes you.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you more bitter, more negative. It causes a lack of forgiveness. And earlier, you talked about forgiveness. And I want to say in grief, forgiveness is an essential part of walking through grief. There are things that one needs to address and forgive in that area of
Yeah.
grieving. It may be situations, it may be people, it may be other things, but forgiveness. And you talked about earlier that you forgave. And again, y'all, I mean, Chris isn't, he is really giving examples of what I see in my own clients, but it is not common for people to pursue the healing in the manner that Chris has. So I hope all of you are encouraged by his example and that this man is an overcomer and he's showing you living and breathing that example. And then go and find that counselor, come to the Sterling Rose Sanctuary, get to the resources so that you can have the healing and your life can be impacted. And now you will impact other people. See, that's what Chris is doing. I love this.
I appreciate that so much. You know, with everything that you're doing and the hope that you instill in others, I think is equally as inspiring. And I feel it's important to acknowledge how much you're doing in this community, in this space, because we need to lift each other up. We need to encourage each
Yeah.
other to want to do more, to keep reaching higher, because we have so many people who think they have reached the mountaintop and don't want to continue climbing. And then
Mm,
you have people like you and I who we see those mountaintops, but then we find another peak that we can climb to.
that's right.
And I think it's important to never be content with what we're doing, to never
Absolutely.
be comfortable where we're at and always try to grow and evolve. And like I said, defeat the me of yesterday.
Yes,
Person that I am today isn't going to be the person I am tomorrow. It's going
that's
to be a
right.
different version.
Yep.
And I think there are so many different aspects of life that people take for granted. And life is probably the biggest example of that. And you alluded to it earlier. But when we were born, we take our first breath, and that one breath is 1 second closer to death.
That's right.
And it may sound morbid, it may sound negative, whatever. It's reality, is what it
It is.
is.
It is. And so when
And
death happens, and here's the reality, we shouldn't be in shock. But
yeah,
that's what happens. Everybody, oh my gosh. It's going to happen to all of us, and it's going to happen a multitude of times. As you were pointing out, Chris, that we're going, to that next peak. Well, in order to get the next peak, we have to go to the valley. We
right.
can't just jump across. People, we
That's
got to go in the valley and we got to go back up. There's a valley. We're coming down, we're going back up. But we go through the valley. If you go
yep,
through the valley and you keep going back, then you will get back up. That's just the way it is. There is a place to aspire to
absolutely.
and not to give up and not to think that this is all that life has for you because it's not.
Right.
There's so much more.
I completely agree. So I usually ask all my guests this question, but I always try to switch it up for whoever my guests are. What's one thing you wish everybody understood about grief?
To know how to breathe again, to move
Mm,
again, and live again in their created design.
I
And
love
that
that.
and with that, because we don't breathe, we in grief, we take very shallow breaths. We teach breathing techniques to our clients to take some deep breaths. And as I had alluded to earlier, we become immobile.
Yeah,
And so I pray that every single one in your audience breathes again, moves again, and lives again.
love it. Um, so before we get to the closing quote of the podcast, where can our listeners find you?
At www.thestirlingrosesanctuary.us. And on there is our ministry. It's what we do, my book. My son's an accomplished music artist, and he actually works with people to do spoken word and to be able to take a letter that they've written to someone and put it into song.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. So today's quote is from Zoe Clark Coates, and it reads, "The Guide to Surviving Grief. Cry whenever you need to, scream, shout, lay on the floor, sob in the shower, be still, run, walk, create. Live your truth, share without fear, listen, release your pain, breathe, be courageous, throw away the map, wander, be real, be compassionate, read, seek friendship, be vulnerable, and most importantly of the entire quote, don't fear being broken.
And can I say something to the broken?
Yeah.
I don't believe we're broken. I think we're broken open.
Mm, I love that.
Because broken to me indicates that it's not fixable. And if it is put back together, you're going to see the seams. But broken open indicates to me that I've just been broken open to be able to grow in a different direction
Hmm.
and to come up and to live out in that new green substance of life. So I like broken open. That's what I felt when my son passed. I was broken open, not broken.
That's a really good perspective. I think I like that a lot more than being broken.
Yes, yes.
Because it's like a tree. You see a tree get struck by lightning and it splits, but it still grows. It grows a different way.
And a seed has to break open in order to come through the clay in the ground, or it just stagnates and dies.
Yeah, that's
And
very
so
true.
we are broken open. We're seeds broken open
And can you share that quote with us one more time that you said?
to breathe again, move again, and live again.
Love it. So powerful. I love every single word. Marcia, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. You've been a lovely guest and love hearing your story and hearing all the good things that you're doing in this community. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, honey, for having me on. I can't wait to see the picture.
And for all my listeners, as always, thank you so much for your support. Till next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.